Hi everyone. So today I thought I'd talk about some of the books that I've been reading over the past few years. So I got this book and it says right, and I've been using it to keep track of all the books that I've been reading over the years. So I've been keeping track by year and it goes back to 2014. So I'll show you. I won't be able to see it anyway. That's my list. So at the time I didn't have a Kindle, so most of my first year books or first years of books are physical. First one was The Hunger Games. I really enjoyed this one. I couldn't put it down. It was really entertaining. So yeah, I read most of this one when my sister was in the hospital. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Went through it really quickly. And then Catching Fire, of course. And then Mockingjay. I'll say that the first book was definitely my favorite. And it progressed to Mockingjay, which was okay. It's not a bad book, but I definitely liked Hunger Games the best. But you know, I do recommend reading them all. If you're gonna read one, you may as well read the other two. Okay, so I guess I should give this a rating out of 5. So I'd say overall for like the whole series, maybe like I don't know. It's been a few years since I've read it, so from what I can remember, I'd probably give it maybe a 4 out of 5. The first book, I'd probably give like 4.5 out of 5 because it was much better. And yes, I've seen the movies. Yeah, I really liked the movies. I thought they did a pretty good job, and I actually think that some people enjoyed the later movies, like the second and third, fourth movies, more than the second and third books. And I thought it was kind of weird that not weird, but they divided the last book into 2 movies, which like should have seen coming, with Harry Potter and everything. But anyway, so the next book was Catcher in the Rye. Catcher in the Rye. That's the front. So this book I read when I visited my parents. They live out in BC and I live in Ontario, so it's like a 6-hour flight, I think. I read a little bit when I was like maybe a few chapters, but I read the majority of it when I was flying home from their house, and I really liked this book a lot. So the reason I decided to read this one, I'm really into the Vlogbrothers, and they have this crash course literature, and John Green was talking about Catcher in the Rye, and it sounded intriguing to me, so I thought I'd buy a copy, and it was really cheap, and it was a brand new book on Amazon. Yeah, I'd probably give this one 4.5 out of 5. Oh, I should be saying who wrote all these books. So The Hunger Games is written by Susan Collin. Catcher in the Rye is J.D. Salinger. Okay, so next was Anne of Green Gables. There it is, Anne of Green Gables. And this is written by Ellen Montgomery. So this one I bought when I was out in PEI. I went there, I'm trying to remember what year, like 2000, I want to say 7, but I think it was probably like 2004 or something. So I went out there with my parents and my cousin, and Anne of Green Gables takes place in PEI, so I thought, why not read it while I'm there? So I read this whole book when I was there, and I bought the next 2 books, but I've never read them, so that's kind of an indication of how I felt about it. Anyway, so I thought that I would try it again, and just to see if I felt any different about it. Not really. It's not a bad book. The character of Anne is really cool. I think she's a neat character. But it just, I don't know. Not a bad book, just not one of my favorites. For me personally, I'd probably give it 3.5 out of 5. Worth a read, but yeah, not one of my favorites. Okay, so the next one, also a recommendation by John Green, Beyond the Beautiful Forevers. And this is written by Catherine Boo. This is a heavy read. But really, really good. There's a lot of it's got a lot of violence in it, and so sometimes it can be hard to read, but if John Green recommended it, I figured it was probably good. And it was, and I'm glad I read it, even though it was a little intense at times. Yeah, and I think that everyone should read this book too. It was really good. So I'm going to give this one 4.5 out of 5. I hesitate to give anything 5, because that would mean that it was absolutely perfect. And yeah, 4.5. So next was another series. It's the Divergent series. So I have the series, the 3 books, and I got the next one, which is 4. So the first one was Divergent. I really like this book a lot. I thought it was pretty cool. I know the movie didn't do that well. I think it's just because people had already seen The Hunger Games and they were kind of over the whole thing. I really liked this one. These are written by Veronica Roth. Yeah, really like the first one. Next one is Insurgent. This one, it starts off in a really peaceful place, and I didn't want to read it because I was really enjoying that like peaceful feeling at the beginning of the book, because I knew it was just going to turn into chaos. But yeah, also really enjoyed this one. And then the next one is Allegiant. This one is still good. The book kind of changes, like the story changes in this book, and things start to get like revealed, which is kind of cool. But again, like just like with The Hunger Games, the first one is my favorite, and then the other 2 are okay. So for this trilogy, I'd probably give it probably 4 out of 5, but the first one I'd probably do 4.5. And then after that trilogy, 4 was released, which is about one of the characters. This one was interesting because you get to see the point of view of one of the character that's not necessarily the main character for the majority of the story. This one I'd probably give 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. So the next one that I read was a Star Wars book, and it's The Truce at Bakura. I think that's how you say it. By Kathy Tyers. Tyers? Tylers? I don't know if I wrote that wrong. It says Tyers in my book. So I don't have that physical book with me because I borrowed it from a friend to read it. So I'll put up a picture of it here. That was really good. I'd never read a Star Wars book before. I love the movies, and I liked that it had some characters that I already knew. Like it had Leia and Han in it, I believe. It had a little bit of their story like after the movies. Well, at the time, after those movies had come out. There's more that have come out since then. That one I'd probably give another 4 out of 5. We're at the end now. There's 4 more books that I read, and this series is really special to me. The first book is my favorite book I've ever read, and it is The Giver. The first book in the series, this is all 4 books in one book, which is pretty cool. I mostly bought this just because the first book is my favorite, and I just thought this was just gorgeous. It's got the red on the sides of the pages, which is pretty cool. The color red is important in the first book. You have to read to find out why. So this series is written by Lois Lowry. I think that's how you say it. So I read the first book, The Giver, when I was in grade 7, It was a book that we were given as a reading assignment, and we were supposed to only read one chapter every single night. And this is the first book that I ever read that I almost couldn't help myself from reading the next chapter. It was just so good. I fell in love with the characters right away. Yeah, and the story is just awesome. It's just amazing. I think everyone should read The Giver. That one, 5 out of 5 for sure. That is the best book I've ever read. So the next one is Gathering Blue. That one was also really good. But it totally takes you in a different direction from the first one. So when you're reading it, you start to think that maybe it doesn't belong in the series, but it all comes together eventually. So the next one is Messenger, and the last one is Sun. So the first book feels a little bit different than the last three, but I feel like the last three go together and they kind of, in the end, everything kind of makes sense. Although when you're reading it, it feels a little disjointed. I will say that the first one's my favorite and the next three are a little so-so. I'm glad I read them all, but if you're only going to read one, I would recommend just reading the first one. The first book gets 5 out of 5. The next three, probably 3.5 to 4. And the whole series, I'd probably give a 4. But the first book, definitely read the first book. So that was everything for 2014. I'll probably do some more videos talking about books that I've read in other years. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I hope you have a good day. Thanks for watching. Bye.